Brazil's Supreme Court has overturned all of former President Lula Da Silva's convictions brought through Operation Lava Jato. Venezuela began vaccinating teachers against Covid-19 after President Nicolás Maduro called for a return to in-person teaching in April. Senegal's president calls for calm after days of deadly clashes between opposition supporters and security forces. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Gladys Quesada. In Brazil, Supreme Court Judge Edson Fachin has overturned all of former President Lula Da Silva's convictions brought through Operation Lava Jato. With the Supreme Court's decision, Lula regains his political rights and will be able to participate in next year's election. The ruling comes after consecutive defeats for the Lava Jato or car wash operation, including its dismantling this year. It also comes after the revelation of messages showing that the public prosecutor's office and former judge Sergio Moro acted illegally when conducted investigations as part of the operation. Argentina's President Alberto Fernández reacted on Twitter to the news that the Brazilian Supreme Court had overturned the convictions against former Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, clearing the way for the left-wing leader to run in the 2022 presidential election. Fernández stressed that the convictions against Lula were issued with the sole purpose of persecuting him and eliminating him from the political sphere, and noted that the ruling meant justice has been done. According to a poll released on Sunday, Brazil's former president Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva would surpass current far-right head of state Jair Bolsonaro in the 2022 elections. The poll, carried out by local media measuring the support for 10 potential candidates, states that 50% of those questioned will vote for Lula if he were to run again for the presidential office. Bolsonaro appears with 12 percentage points less than Lula and a disapproval rating of 56%. A former union leader and known as one of the country's most popular presidents ever, Lula was previously prevented from running again for the presidency due to the criminal charges against him, which he and his supporters have stressed were politically motivated. Bolivia's movement towards socialism has consolidated itself as the leading political force in the country, following the regional elections held on Sunday. The unofficial results show that the support for the party was concentrated in 6 departments, where it was already established as a major political organization. Party leader and former President Evo Morales welcomed the results and emphasized that the government continues to be a movement and a historical political force of the country. If this trend continues as the official results come in, the party is set to win in 5 of 9 departments and will advance to the second round of elections in 2 of them, to be held on April 11th. In Colombia, a new massacre was reported in the northern state of Santander, with 5 people dead and another 5 injured. The assassinations took place in a rural zone located between Abrego and Oca municipalities late Saturday. The authorities have identified the victims as Wilton Prada Puentes, Elmer Ortiz Ballesteros, José Luis Vega Plata, Jesus Alberto Vega, and Robinson Garay Barbosa. Around 16 massacres have been registered in Colombia during the first 3 months of 2021. President of Paraguay, Mario Abdo Benitez, has appointed a new Minister of Health after the former minister resigned in the face of protests over the handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. The new minister, Julio Borba, replaces Julio Mazzoleni and stated that he will focus his efforts on the acquisition of COVID-19 vaccines for the population, including, if necessary, through the visits to the countries producing the vaccines. He also acknowledged that the country has only acquired 24,000 vaccine doses so far. And we'll be right back after this very short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. Venezuela has begun vaccinating teachers against COVID-19 after President Nicolás Maduro Moros called for a return to in-person teaching in April. The government plans to inoculate around 100,000 teachers with the vaccine produced by Chinese laboratory Sinopharm. On the weekend, President Maduro stated that on-site classes suspended last March should be resumed in April. Venezuela launched its vaccination campaign against COVID-19 on February 18th after receiving a first batch of the Russian Sputnik V vaccine, which was destined to health sector workers. According to the government, the country has received 200,000 doses of Sputnik V out of a total of 10 million agreed with Moscow and 500,000 doses from Sinopharm.
Community, there were many infected people, and I saw firsthand what COVID is at the beginning, but now there is confidence and we have already handled more the educational part of how to work with the children, the health protocols, how to work at school, so there is a lot of confidence with this vaccine. I think we're going to come back peaceful in April.
It's excellent, and this is what can cure us to be able to continue with our work. And since this new trend is here, we all have to get vaccinated. This is necessary. There are people who are afraid to get it. It does not cause any effect. I just go in it and I feel perfectly fine.
Experts from the World Health Organization who arrived in China in mid-January stated that there is no evidence to support the theory that the coronavirus was created in a Wuhan lab. Our colleague and CGTN reporter in Wuhan, Pan Jinjin, brings us more details in the following report.
A group of experts from the World Health Organization arrived in China in mid-January 2021 to investigate the origins of the pandemic. They visited the Wuhan Institute of Virology, laboratories and disease control centers. The experts concluded that there is no evidence to support the theory that the coronavirus was created in Wuhan's laboratories. According to the WHO, this laboratory is very well equipped and rigorously managed. The preliminary results of the joint study conducted between WHO and Chinese experts support the possibility of direct transmission or transmission through the cold food chain. The experts also raised the possibility that the virus may have been introduced into the population through an intermediate host.
WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom urged Tuesday to follow scientific guidelines to control pandemic instead of taking shortcuts.
We have come so far. We have suffered so much. And we have lost so many. We must not squander the progress we have made. We have the tools to control the pandemic, but we can only do it if we use them consistently and equitably. Science, solutions, and solidarity remain our guide. There are no shortcuts.
UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson on Monday said that the return of children to school in England after a 2-month closure had been emotional, but he also urged people not to let their guard down and to follow the rules in order to keep the coronavirus controlled. Teacher unions have criticized Johnson and his government for forcing them back into classrooms without the necessary health and safety warranties.
We will continue on this roadmap, but we must remember that today's return to schools will of course have an impact on the spread of the virus. And so at all times, and as we decide on the next steps forward and when we take them, we will be driven by the data. And with the number of patients being admitted to hospital with COVID each day still around 8 times higher than the lows of last summer, it's more vital than ever to follow the rules.
In the United States, the trial of former police officer Derek Chauvin has begun, charged with the murder of George Floyd on May 25, 2020. Chauvins has pled not guilty to second-degree unintentional murder and second-degree manslaughter charges. In addition, a charge of third-degree murder that was dismissed in October is now in limbo, after an appeals court ruled the trial judge should reconsider a motion to reinstate it. Jury selection in the trial, being held at the Hennepin County Government Center, was delayed from Monday to Tuesday as the court tries to decide how to proceed with that appeal. Video of Floyd's death while being pinned to the floor by Chauvin went viral, sparking outrage and triggering a wave of protests against police brutality and systemic racism in the United States and beyond. Libyan lawmakers began consultations on Monday aimed at confirming a newly appointed government which will lead the country through elections by the end of the year. More than 130 members of the House of Representatives met in the coastal city of Sirte after Prime Minister-designate Abdul Hamid Dibagh presented his proposed cabinet to Speaker Agla Saleh last week. The proposed cabinet includes 33 ministers and 2 deputy prime ministers, representative of Libya's different geographic areas and social segments. Lawmakers finished the deliberations on Monday and were secluded until convening again Tuesday morning, when the Prime Minister is set to address Parliament. The Parliament has until March 24 to confirm the newly appointed government. And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Senegal's President Macky Sall called for calm on Monday after days of deadly clashes between opposition supporters and security forces in the West African state.
I call for calm and peace. All together, let's silence our bitterness and avoid the logic of confrontation which leads to the worst. On the judicial aspect of this crisis, let justice take its course in complete independence. I also understand, my dear fellow citizens, that the anger that has been expressed in recent days is also linked to the impact of an economic crisis aggravated by the Covid-19 pandemic.
However, clashes erupted between police and demonstrators on Monday after the release of the opposition leader Osman Sunko. Police shot tear gas and non-lethal ammunition while blocked streets. Some built barricades and threw objects against the security forces. Sonko's supporters vowed to start 3 more days of demonstrations, and some indicated they will push ahead even as the opposition figure was expected to be released from custody later Monday after being formally charged. In his first speech after being released on Monday, Senegalese opposition leader Osman Sunko blamed his arrest on President Macky Sall, accusing him of seeking to sideline his future political prospects before the country's 2024 election. Sunko was arrested due to rape allegations.
In our memory, we have never experienced in this country ever a situation like this one. Many crises have been gone through, political crises, but we have never experienced one like this one. It is really serious because the arrival of President Macky Sall had raised the hopes of all Senegalese people with a cry of promise. All this positive synergy shows that in moments of doubt, anxiety, and turbulence, our social regulators work, and the pillars of our nation remain strong. On the judicial aspect of this crisis, let us allow justice to take its course in complete independence.
To mark International Women's Day, President of Argentina, Alberto Fernandez, signed a federal agreement with provincial governors to promote united action against gender-based violence in the country. The president and governors, as well as the Women, Genders and Diversity, Elizabeth Gomez, signed the federal agreement for an Argentina united against gender-based violence during an act held at the Bicentennial Museum of the Presidential Palace to tackle the widespread cases of femicide in the country. During his speech, Fernandez stressed the importance of ensuring gender equality and noted that the state reaction to cases of femicide is low or non-existent.
We are taking steps as a society that encouraged us to build competent state policy that will lead us to agree that there are things that we will not tolerate in any corner of Argentina, and one of those things is gender-based abuse, much less femicide, and we will not agree to unequal treatment of women in the workplace or in family life.
In Myanmar, over 1,000 protesters returned cautiously to the streets in Mandalay on Tuesday. Protesters were carrying homemade shields bearing the symbol of the three-finger salute, the adopted symbol of defiance. They only stayed for a few minutes before dispersing to avoid any potential confrontation with riot police. Protesters had seemingly adapted their tactics in the face of escalating levels of violence from security forces, which have included the use of live ammunition. To date, the government's crackdown has left more than 50 protesters dead. Over 1,800 people have been arrested in relation to the takeover, including thousands of journalists. Protesters persisted in southern Myanmar on Tuesday, more than a month after the nation's elected government was ousted in a military takeover. Demonstrators marched through the small city of Dawei, carrying the flag for detained leader Aung San Suu Kyi's National League for Democracy. The military government placed a major curb on media coverage of the crisis. It announced that the licenses of 5 local media outlets have been cancelled. Protesters in other parts of Myanmar defied night curfews Monday, seeking to show support for an estimated 200 students trapped by security forces in a small area of one neighborhood in Yangon. On Tuesday, workers in Mauritius began pumping 130 tons of fuel from a Chinese fishing vessel that ran aground off a coral reef on the Indian Ocean Island's west coast. According to local media, the grounded ship has spilled a small amount of fuel into the ocean, and its hull remains intact. Police helicopters are helping to remove the diesel fuel and oil lubricant from the stranded ship. Authorities said it is expected to take up to 5 days to empty the ship and remove it from the reef. The 150-foot trawler ran Yuan aground when it was entering the port of Pointe-aux-Sables on Sunday. The Ministry of Fisheries has launched a preliminary investigation into how the trawler ran aground. China said on Tuesday its plans to improve the electoral system in the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region is totally constitutional and an internal affair that other countries must not interfere in.
Their appeal is unreasonable. This is an obvious act of interfering in China's internal affairs and Hong Kong affairs. Endowed by the Constitution, the National People's Congress has the right and responsibility to improve the electoral system of the HKSAR from the national level, which is conducive to promoting the policy of one country, two systems, and maintaining the long-term stability of the HKSAR. This is completely constitutional, legal and reasonable. The purpose of improving the electoral system is to make up for the shortcomings of the current electoral system in the HKSAR. We believe it will better guarantee democracy and freedom for the Hong Kong people.
Spain's foreign minister reacted on Tuesday to a decision by the European Parliament to remove the immunity of the former president of the country's Catalonia region and 2 of his associates.
The European Parliament has decided to lift the parliamentary immunity of Carles Puigdemont, Clara Ponsati and Toni Comín to appear before the Spanish justice, and with this decision they send a triple message. First, that a member of European Parliament cannot use their status to protect themselves from appearing before national justice for possible violations of national laws. A second is a message of solidity regarding the rule of law of Spain, of respect for the work of the Spanish justice system. And a third message, and that is that the problems of Catalonia are resolved in Spain. They are not resolved in Europe.
And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.